The Galactic Institute of Allied Medicine was considered the most prestigious learning hub in the Orion arm species. From over 100 worlds came to study anatomy, xenobiology, and trauma response in sterile, AI-controlled lecture halls. Most students were calm, focused, and respectful of the intricacies of interspecies care. And then the humans enrolled. When Cadet Specialist Grilek of the Viathan Brood first met the Terran exchange students, he assumed they were observers, not practitioners. They were loud, casual, often laughing at things that made no sense, especially the one called Corporal Hayes. Human Hayes had a large scar across his forehead, a twisted smile, and a habit of sharpening a combat knife during lectures on non-lethal intervention. Grilek tried to ignore the humans. Until the live simulation day. It was a standard exercise. Triage on simulated casualties following a transport vessel crash. Teams were randomized to promote interspecies cooperation. Grilek's team included 2 Oolari medics, 1 cautious marine neurosurgeon, and, unfortunately, Corporal Hayes. When the alarm blared and the simulation began, they rushed into the holographic wreckage chamber. Smoke, debris, and automated dummies simulating various injuries greeted them. The Oolari moved with precision, checking vitals. The Marine issued careful sedatives. And Hayes? Hayes grabbed the screaming victim with a missing leg, yanked a belt from his own waist, and cinched a tourniquet so tight the dummy actually sparked. "What are you doing?" Grilek cried, horrified. "Bleeder. Had to cut it off before he coded. You guys can scan. I'll keep him alive." Hayes pulled out a compact metal tube, cracked it, and shoved it into the dummy's mouth. "Is that an inhalant stimulant?" the Marine asked, scandalized. "Yup. He's not gonna sleep through this." Before anyone could object, another crash victim groaned nearby. The Oolari hesitated. It had a severe compound fracture. Hayes didn't hesitate. He grabbed a field splint, kicked the dummy's leg straight with a crack, and duct-taped it into place. Grilek recoiled in shock. "You broke it more." "No," Hayes replied casually, already moving to the next casualty. "I set the bone. We don't have time for fancy scans out here. If it works in a war zone, it works in here." 10 minutes later, their team had stabilized more casualties than any other group. But the real chaos came during the debriefing. Instructor Velman, a 3-eyed Dorsari trauma specialist, was reviewing footage. "Let's examine Team 6. Most efficient, but unconventional," he said, clearly uneasy. The class watched as Hayes shoved a tampon-like gauze into a deep wound, tied a patient's broken jaw with an undershirt, and used a literal stick and shoelaces to make a traction splint. "What is that technique?" Velman asked, eyes wide. Hayes shrugged. "It's called improvisation, sir." The room was silent. Finally, Grilek raised a trembling hand. This is standard practice on your homeworld?" Hayes leaned back in his chair. "Well, not in hospitals, but in forests, deserts, combat drops, snowstorms, post-apocalyptic hellscapes. Yeah, standard." Another student, a gentle-winged Farian, looked horrified. "You shoved a needle through your own skin to stitch your arm. That was not a simulation." Hayes grinned. "Oh, that old scar split open. Figured I'd patch it while I waited." Instructor Velman blinked slowly. "Humans are extremely high on the trauma tolerance scale. But even so, your threshold for self-treatment is unprecedented." Hayes tilted his head. "We're from a death world, sir. You adapt or you die. Sometimes all you've got is a sock, duct tape, and someone yelling, 'Stay with me,' while you're bleeding out." The Marine surgeon muttered, "We spend years learning nerve repair. Humans spend 10 minutes learning how to jam a pen into someone's throat to create an airway. That's called a cricothyrotomy," Hayes offered helpfully. "Wanna learn it?" "No," the Marine said too quickly, but curiosity was already spreading. Within a week, half the class had signed up for the optional Field Survival and Emergency Human Tactics module, taught unofficially by Hayes. The lessons were brutal. Day 1 involved identifying safe tourniquet materials in an alien jungle. Day 2, fire building for cauterization. Day 3, simulated battlefield amputations using rubber limbs and unsettling amounts of fake blood. At first, the non-humans balked. But something strange happened. They got faster, sharper, bolder. Hayes had a saying, "In the field, you don't rise to the level of your training. You fall to the level of what you've done." Panicking in the dark, half-blind and probably bleeding, the alien cadets started to understand. Their worlds taught perfection. The humans taught survival. Messy, raw, but effective. One day, during a surprise fire drill, a real incident occurred. An Olari student tripped and was impaled on a metal shard. Before anyone else could move, Grilek sprinted forward. He pressed a knee to the wound, yelled for a medkit, and jammed his own talon into the Olari's pressure point to stop the bleeding. Instructor Velman arrived moments later. "Who authorized that?" Grilek, panting and shaking, said. "Human Hayes did." Velman paused, then nodded. "You saved his life." Hayes, watching from the back, simply smiled and muttered, "Not bad for a Leviathan."